Is UK property going up? Now, I get this question asked pretty much every day, and the truth is, it depends. Because the market shifts month to month, and to really get a good perspective of this, we really need to zoom out. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 20 years of UK property house prices, as well as what the current market is doing, but also what you should be doing if you're a buyer or a seller in the UK property market right now. Stay tuned. According to Zoopla, UK house prices have risen a staggering 74%, jumping from £113,000 in 2005 way up to over £260,000 today. Whilst that may sound like amazing news for homeowners and certainly for investors who hold on to their properties, it certainly has made one thing harder, which is people wanted to move back to their hometown. Zoopla found that 52% of adults in the UK would consider moving back to their childhood hometown. However, for many of those, especially in South East and Eastern England, that's no longer financially viable. In fact, if we look at London alone, we can see that property prices have gone up over 100% over the course of the last 20 years. In the South East and Eastern England, prices are up 87%, and the price to income ratios have also climbed from 7.8% to 8.6% in the southeast, and from 7.1% to 7.7% in the east. And here are a few examples. In Elmbridge, Surrey, prices more than doubled. And when we look at, say, Albans, well, prices went from £290,000 to over £620,000. That's more than 100% growth. Let's contrast this to the north. North East saw prices increase just by 39%. And believe it or not, affordability actually improved. Sunderland saw increases of just 22% over the course of the last 2 decades. And Blackpool and Hull also saw modest increase of 26% and 49% respectively. So while some regions in the UK, like Surrey, have doubled in price, in the north, if that's your hometown, that dream of going back, it's still a very big possibility. So if you purchase a property in London, as an example, if you sell that property and went back home, well, you probably can be mortgage free. And here's the thing, the UK property market shifts rapidly. So it makes sense for you to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a thing. But what about right now? Let's bring this back to today's market. Rightmove reports that there's been a slight dip this month of 0.3%, landing at house prices at £378,000. This is actually quite unusual for June, especially just before the summer, when we see house prices increase around about 0.5%. Now, why is this? Well, quite frankly, it's because of stamp duty, and we're seeing more of an impact in the capital in London. This is where house prices are at the highest, and stamp duty, of course, is going to follow that. And this spreads across the regions of South East and the Southwest. The post-April stamp duty hike led to a rush of early purchases, flooding the market with listings. And this has created a decade high competition amongst sellers. And of course, this has led to a buyer's market in many places across the country. As Colleen from Rightmove explains, there's a record level of homes for sale, and the recent stamp duty changes are now pushing sellers to be more realistic with pricing. Many are finally adjusting to what the market will bear. And if you're a buyer or seller in the current property market, leave me a comment below. Let me know your experience. And this balancing of pricing between buyers and sellers is not unique in any way. We saw this during Brexit, COVID, and during where the mortgage went through the roof. And as I'm shooting this video, the Bank of England is getting together, and it is predicted that they're going to keep rates on hold at 4.25%. That being said, regardless, we are seeing lenders starting to slide down. In fact, if we look here from Gen H, the lender specializing with first-time buyers, they have reduced their rates by 0.5% percentage, and it's offering a 5-year fixed rate of over 5.6% with just around about £1,500 fee, and that's of course with a 15% deposit. It is really a phase whereby buyers and sellers start to be realistic as to what is true market value. Let me share with you Laura's story, an accidental landlady who purchased the property back in 2005 when buy-to-let was thriving and of course mortgage was low. Come 2024 and Laura's rethinking her buy-to-let strategy. In fact, she's fed up. because of the high mortgage rates, tax changes, and the regulations coming in. Add to that she has a property in a personal name and it's just not financially viable, and yet mortgage rates are starting to slide down. Laura started to reconsider in holding on to that property. The worst thing about this is that buyers are not seeing how undervalued property are, especially here in London. Let's break down the numbers. We can see the properties on the market for £600,000. The rental income is almost £3,500 per month. The result, a 7% yield in prime London. Now this was pretty much unheard of before COVID, before 2020. And yet Laura's not alone. Across the market, a lot of landlords last year in 2024 and still 2025 who were looking to sell their properties are now starting to reconsider their options, because the truth is the market is confusing. On one hand, you do have prices softening and you do have a lot of options. As buyers, of course, you have a lot of options. There's high competition for sellers. But on the other hand, when you have landlords, and I'll speak about landlords because there is a big percentage of landlords on the market. In fact, at some point last year, 25% of properties on the market for sale were ex-rental properties. A lot of these landlords are starting to reconsider. Number one, you're seeing higher rent, and number two, those mortgages started to slide down. And if you're finding this video helpful, smash that like button. It really does motivate me in pushing more of these videos out. So if you're a seller in the current market, price realistically, the reality is that the first 3 months of putting the property on the market, you're going to have momentum, a momentum that you won't get back. And if you're a buyer in the current market, you know, in many cases, the first handful of properties that you see, that's where you will find your magic property. And I see this so many times where people start their search, and of course it's understandable that they want to see so many more properties, but by the time they go back to the first properties, which the numbers made sense and it ticked all the boxes, that property is no longer available. So I will leave you with this. Buyers, sellers, be realistic. We're certainly not, from a seller's point of view, not in a race for space, post-COVID market. And from a buyer's point of view, we're certainly not seeing sellers being desperate and giving their properties away.